If you're doing endless crunches or cutting carbs to lose belly fat, stop, because you've been lied to and it's not working. And today what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna walk you through exactly why. Hi, I'm Trevor Bucheri and I've helped my patients lose over 133,000 inches of fat from their midsections, which actually equates to 2.1 miles of fat from their midsections alone. I see the information out there, and just like you've been told the wrong things about belly fat for years, and you don't need endless cardio, crash diets, or really just magic detox teas, anything like that that's out there. I've seen it all, Now, I will say there are detox systems that work amazingly, but most of these things are gadget gimmicks, is really what it is. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna break down the real reason belly fat sticks around and how to actually get rid of it today, right now. All right, so number one, the biggest belly fat myths that keep you stuck. Myth number one, you can crunch your way to a flat stomach. No, you really can't crunch your way to a flat stomach. Ab exercises don't burn belly fat. When we see the infomercials, it sure makes it seem like they do, but it just doesn't. It's a myth. Myth number two is just cut carbs and your belly will shrink. Absolutely not. It's really more about hormones and metabolism than it is about carbohydrates. Myth number three here is belly fat is just about calories in versus calories out. Absolutely not. So it's about hormones, it's about stress that we're actually managing, and it's about gut health. All those things play a huge role here. So in terms of actually fixing, the whole myth sequence, it's really just gaining an understanding of what actually controls belly fat and then how to use it to your advantage. It's really called leverage. When you actually get that understanding and you can actually apply it differently, man, you leverage something and then all of a sudden it feels like, oh my gosh, this really is not hard at all. In fact, it's almost actually enjoyable and you really just feel empowered. I think that's the biggest thing, is the empowerment factor, is once you actually understand what to do and you know what to do, you feel unstoppable. You don't feel like, oh my gosh, I don't want to slip off. I need to be perfect, because if I'm not perfect, it's all going to go away. I'm going to lose everything. And I can say that because I felt like that for years. I've gone through, I'm on my 38th nutrition protocol. And for years up front, probably the first decade and a half, I hate to even say it, but probably about that long, about 15 years, I was so rigid and felt like I needed to be so perfect because I feared gaining the weight back. I absolutely feared it. So I would avoid social situations. I wouldn't go to parties. I wouldn't go really anywhere. I wouldn't flux at all. And I was so rigid that I was just like, oh my gosh, I don't think I can live like this, forever. We talked about the number one reason. So the belly fat myths that basically keep you stuck. Number two, the second one, is the hormonal reason why your midsection holds fat and how to actually fix this. All right, that's the second thing. Now, cortisol. This is the stress hormone. So it's the fight or flight. All right, so if we're being chased by a lion right now, our cortisol level is going to spike up, and also our adrenaline level is going to spike up. And that is when we are in that fight or flight. When we actually increase that cortisol level, it increases belly fat. Now, here's another thing as well. When we're talking about stress all the time, now, of course, we have everyday stressors. We have everyday stressors that happen, if you're a mom, you have kids, you have work, you have, a spouse, whatever it may be, or a partner. These things lead to stress, relationships, all right? But chronic stress equals more cortisol, equals more belly fat storage in general. So again, we're talking about that hormonal reason why your midsection holds belly fat, and cortisol is a huge one here. Another thing that actually spikes our cortisol level, poor sleep. That equals higher stress cortisol release, I should say, higher stress hormone, which is the cortisol hormone. So if we have a poor sleep schedule, we're getting lack of sleep. We're sleeping under 7 hours, let's just say. Between 7 and 8 hours is really what's recommended, and really tracking our REM sleep compared to our deep sleep. If we have poor sleep, we're having a higher stress response, higher stress hormone, higher cortisol. And this, again, makes fat loss so much harder. So to be able to fix this, we want to prioritize stress management. Sleeping 7 to 8 hours per night. Just go there. Try to go there. Now, if you're like, oh my gosh, I lay in bed and I can't fall asleep for at least an hour. We're talking 7 to 8 hours of sleep I know we have so much going on. We have so many priorities. We have so many responsibilities. However, if we get this right and we do this consistently for 2 to 3 weeks, do it for 2 to 3 weeks. And if you don't feel like $1,000,000, then go back to what you're doing before, because I promise you, you will be like, I actually feel like a different person. I feel like a new person. So we can fix the cortisol issue. We can go through a detox system, okay? Now, not a detox tea system, but an actual true medical detox system. We can also change our nutrition. We can eat the healthy lean proteins. We can eat fruits. We can eat lean vegetables. All these things that are very, very good for us will also drop our cortisol levels and drop our stress hormone. Prioritizing stress management, say through meditation, breathing techniques, relaxation routines, things like that. Exercise is another one as well. Now, as you're doing it, of course, it is a stressful thing because you're stressing your muscles, but the release, the relaxation, the actual exercise high you get afterwards, the endorphins that you actually get from it is incredible for what it's going to do for your hormone balance. And then sleep. I'm coming back to it again. That's 7 to 8 hours of sleep, and we're talking sleep time. So if it takes you an hour, you want to be in bed for at least 8 hours so you can get that 7 hours. And I promise you that over that 2 to 3 week period of time, it will take you less and less time to actually fall asleep faster. Just like any habit, it takes a minute. It takes a minute to actually get used to that, but I will tell you that right there will be life-changing. The second one here is insulin resistance. Insulin resistance traps fat in the midsection. So if your body is insulin resistant, meaning that your body actually has sugar in the bloodstream, and insulin is actually released to grab onto the sugar and transport the sugar to the cells. When your body is insulin resistant, basically the insulin is released, it grabs onto the sugar, it brings it to the cell, and it just bounces off. Boing! It doesn't actually get absorbed into the cell. So your body is insulin resistant. Now the main reason is because we have so much fat in our diet, nutritional fat in our diet. Okay, and I'm not talking actually say, hey, you know what? Lean protein, say beef has a high amount of fat. I'm not talking that. I'm talking saturated fat. These type of fats, so processed fats like that, okay? When our body is insulin resistant, it actually stores fat. It stores the fat instead of actually burning it. So that is a huge, huge thing, is the insulin resistant. Processed foods and constant snacking, it really just keeps that insulin level high to where your body can never really release enough insulin to actually lower the blood sugar, and it really just keeps that fat locked in. So how do we actually fix that issue? How do we actually fix the insulin issue right there? Balancing blood sugar with high protein meals and better food timing. Better food timing. Now, when we're talking about better food timing, one thing that's really worked insanely well for me is intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting, by definition, is basically 16-hour fast, 8-hour eating window. Okay? And what is really working fantastic for me, and what has for quite a while, is 3 meals during that eating window. All right. My rule is I will have my last meal, and then I will have at least 3 hours before I go to bed. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about food timing, is not having your last meal and then maybe having some snacks as we're watching TV, and then we fall asleep there on the couch, and then we work our way up to bed. These type of things, we still have so much food that is undigested in our bowel, in our gut, which then slows down when we actually fall asleep. Everything slows down when we sleep. And now your body is actually spending all the time that you're sleeping digesting that food and getting it through your system, as opposed to repairing and regenerating your body from the previous day. And so that's a huge, huge thing right there. So that's how you can fix that. Next thing we're going to be talking about under the actual category of the hormonal reason your midsection holds fat is going to be estrogen and hormonal shifts after 35 years old. It really just makes that body fat more stubborn because of the actual estrogen fluctuations and hormone shifts after the age of 35 years old. Just how we're set up physiologically, that makes a huge, huge difference, for women. So as estrogen drops, women tend to actually store more fat, of course, in the midsection. Why? Well, it just does. That's just what it does. Now, part of it is genetics, absolutely, but it's also just accessibility, all right? Convenience. Now, call it the midsection, call it the hips. One or the other is where it tends to go. How convenient, right? So as estrogen drops, women tend to actually store that extra body fat in that midsection. Another one here, menopause. Belly fat is even harder to lose if hormones aren't balanced, okay? So when menopause is actually hitting, and we have a hormone fluctuation, say high cortisol levels, and there's a lot of stress, and there isn't that balance, basically the system that releases the cortisol, which is called our adrenals, that burns out over time. And it almost actually starts releasing less and less and less of that cortisol and less and less and less of that adrenaline. And we start feeling, low energy levels, unmotivated. You just kind of want to just stay inside. We don't want to do too much. These type of things. Our hormones are imbalanced at that particular point. So belly fat is even harder to lose in a situation like this. So how to fix that? How to fix that is supporting estrogen balance with strength training. Now, that's a huge one. Strength training is going to be almost like a reset. It's like a system reset. A system reset for the ladies here. Another thing we can actually do with this as well in terms of supporting estrogen balance is healthy fats. Healthy fats like fish oils are a great thing. Avocado is a great thing. Nuts and seeds, but also try to keep those relatively low with that, because many times it actually causes a little bit of bowel backup as well. And then targeted nutrition. And by targeted nutrition, think of this as actually lean, just lean. And that's what we call taste-centered clean eating, because there's so many amazing things you can do with, say, lean proteins, fruits, and vegetables, okay? Now, of course, we can expand further than that, but when we're talking about targeted nutrition, we're talking about actually, how to, really work on that insulin resistance here. We're able to literally reset that system so quickly if we're actually following those particular guidelines, to the point where when you do, you're going to be like, okay, I'm really not going to go back, because I've gotten so much benefit from this. That's huge. So again, that was really talking about the whole category of the hormonal reason that the midsection holds that fat, okay, and how to fix it. Now we're talking about number 3, this main category here. It's why gut health and inflammation matter more than diet alone. All right, so we're talking about gut health, and gut health is a huge topic around, and the gut is actually considered to be the second brain. Now, inflammation, I just want to break this down really, really quickly here. When we're talking about inflammation, we're not talking about inflammation in a joint. We're not talking about my knee is inflamed, my shoulder, it's inflamed, I'm sore. We're talking about what's called cellular inflammation. And this is something that's extremely prevalent. There's a term called weight loss resistance or metabolic syndrome. And this is actually because of cellular inflammation. Now, cellular inflammation actually happens because several behaviors in terms of what we're eating, lack of movement, really those two main things, right? It's honestly what we're consuming and how little we're moving, all right? That really leads to the cells becoming inflamed. What happens when the cells are inflamed? So essentially around the cell, we have the cell membrane, okay? And the cell membrane is the actual brain of the cell, because it actually is the dictator, so to speak, in terms of what gets in and what goes out of the cell. So, long and short, if we have cellular inflammation, the inflammation is all around the outer part of the cell. It's all around that cell membrane. So, essentially, nutrients can't get in because they just bounce right off, because there's so much inflammation. They can't really get in. The receptors are all clogged, and they're like, no, I don't even know what you are. I'm not going to let you in here. So, nutrients actually don't get absorbed. Vitamins and minerals don't get absorbed properly. And also, guess what? Toxicity happens on the inside of the cell. The cell is constantly processing, and it's actually spilling out toxicity, and that can't get out. All right, so we can't get nutrients in, we can't get toxicity out, we can't actually, the hormone receptors, which are on the outside of the cell, cannot actually receive the hormone signals, and cellular inflammation, therefore, in that particular case, is causing metabolic syndrome or weight loss resistance, and we're like, oh my gosh, my body cannot lose weight. My thyroid is messed up. All these different scenarios that are coming up, they're very, very similar. They're all one. There's one solution to them. So I just wanted to really just go, on a little rant with that as well, but just because I think it's so valuable. Because the main, way we can actually negate these and reverse these is through, number 1, a full systemic cellular detox, medical detox, and then healthy nutrition. And when we're talking healthy nutrition, I'm talking make it taste centered so that it's tasting amazing and you're like, I feel like I'm not really doing anything different other than just feeding myself differently. And I'm probably eating more than I ever have before. and my energy feels amazing. My body's transforming before my eyes, and I feel like I'm not even doing anything. This is the easiest approach I've ever done. I'm actually enjoying it. I could do this forever. And when you feel like that, you feel like, boom, I could just conquer the world. And that's what we're talking about right here. And that's honestly the simplicity of it. It's not easy, but it's very, very simple. And once you actually get into the stride and build that momentum, then it does become easy because of the fact that you're so motivated and inspired by the fact that, oh my gosh, it's working. And it's almost like, again, it becomes that secret. It's like, do people know about this? That's how I felt about weight loss when I really discovered it. And now I've gotten to a point where it's like, how do I make this so optimal? How do I make this actually work so well for me that I actually love the process? And that's what this is all about. Anyways, that's a side tangent. And we're talking about the reason number 3 here. Reason number 3 is why gut health and inflammation matters more than diet alone. And we're talking about an unhealthy gut. So if we have unhealthy gut bacteria, all right, that is all the bacteria that's living in our gut that really helps us digest, break down food, absorb food. If we have an unhealthy gut, it's going to equal more belly fat storage, okay? So poor digestion equals bloating and inflammation equals the belly looking bigger. It's really, really interesting. If we have an unhealthy gut, it means we have poor digestion. So we don't have the right gut bacteria to actually break down the food. So therefore we have poor digestion. The food doesn't really break down. Not only does it not break down, but we can't actually compartmentalize. We can't fraction out the actual nutrients in the food. And therefore it's going to lead to bloating. It's going to lead to inflammation because everything is unprocessed. And it's gonna feel that bloat. We're gonna feel like our belly is bigger. We've all felt like that before, and that is not a cool feeling at all because an unhealthy gut equals more belly fat storage. Food sensitivities, we're still talking about the unhealthy gut equals belly fat storage. So food sensitivities, say bad gut bacteria, kind of like we talked about here, it causes water retention and also fat gain as well. I mean, so man, the gut is so important here. How we can fix an unhealthy gut here is focusing on fiber, focusing on fermented foods. We may have heard of fermented foods. You can actually get fermented pickles. You can get a lot of different fermented foods here, okay? And then also gut healing nutrients like probiotics. Probiotics you can actually get in a supplement form. The whole thing with probiotics is you cannot overdose on probiotics. You really cannot. So go ahead. I know that they have different products out there that have, say, 10 million bacteria, 25 million bacteria. That's fantastic. Go for it. You will definitely feel a difference, and you'll be healing your gut. And that is something that I would highly recommend. It's been game-changing for myself, game-changing for our patients here. We're talking about hidden inflammation stops fat loss. So sugars, processed foods, and even some actual healthy foods can trigger inflammation because we look at things like granola bars, right? Oh, that's healthy. It's processed. It's not healthy. Think about it this way. When we go to a store, here's a really good way to think about it. When we're looking at foods, thinking of the whole concept of how many steps does it take to get from where this food originated to where I'm putting it into my mouth. And a really good way to do that is if we're actually looking at, say, boxed foods, things like that. Look at the back and look at the ingredients. If the ingredients are like this long and it's just all these words that you really can't pronounce and you see things like high fructose corn syrup and all these different things that it doesn't even matter, we won't get into the detail of it, but just know that is not good. All right, so sugar, processed foods, and again, some so-called healthy foods, these can trigger inflammation. Chronic inflammation as a whole, when we're talking chronic cellular inflammation, equals the body holding onto water and fat, especially in the midsection. So it creates that bloat. Why does it always go to the midsection? I don't know. I guess it's just, kind of one of those things that it's like, no one really likes the extra belly fat. No one actually likes the extra pounds stored in our midsection. So it's kind of like, hey, here's a really instant feedback loop. Here's an instant feedback mechanism to say, oh gosh, what you're doing is not working here. Because most of us are going to pay attention and be like, oh, I feel like I have a little bit more here. What's going on? And it's going to make us stop what we're doing and think like, okay, can I change that? Whereas maybe if it went to a place that hides it well, say like our upper back or something like that, it might not be as much of a priority, let's just say. So chronic inflammation, again, it's going to equal the body holding on to more water and actually fat, especially in that midsection. So how can we fix this? We can cut back on processed foods, cut back on seed oils. Now, I talked about seeds before. definitely you can do nuts and seeds, but limit them, because many times it causes backup in people as well, in terms of you become irregularly, in terms of your bowel movements and things like that. And that's also another thing with seed oils as well. Many people are very, very sensitive to seed oils. So cutting back on processed foods, cutting back on seed oils, and also artificial ingredients. Just like we talked about, when we're looking at that box, when we're looking at the ingredients, it's almost like when you go and you look at, fruit, and you go look at vegetables, where are the ingredients on there? There aren't. When you go look at lean proteins, there aren't. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm talking about when we're talking about how many steps did it take to get from where this food originated to me putting it in my mouth. It's almost like, okay, well, it came from the ground if it's a vegetable, and then it was transported over to the store and it was put on the shelf. That's nice, right? That's nice. All right, so we're talking about step number 4, breaking down the real reason why belly fat sticks around, and it's why the scale weight doesn't actually tell the full story. All right, and also what to track instead. So the scale lies. So belly fat loss does not always show up on the scale right away. It doesn't. All right. Also, water retention masks progress. All right, hormones, stress, and sodium, things like that, they all affect the body holding on to water. So water retention, it actually masks progress. So you may be getting great progress, but you may just be holding so much water because your hormones are off, or your stress is very high, and your cortisol is very, very high, and maybe your body is holding on to sodium because of all that. In terms of, say, if you didn't have the hormone fluctuation, the stress levels were more regulated, and your stress management was higher. Again, that's something we track as stress management. If our stress management goes up based upon the data we're collecting for our patients, the stress management goes up, it means that the cortisol levels, meaning the hormone levels, drop down and the hormones are more regulated. That's how we can really tell. And then the body, when we're eating sodium, it actually flushes it out like normal, and we're able to actually get that equilibrium going. But when we have the hormone fluctuation, we have the poor stress management, and then we have the sodium in the body can't get rid of that sodium, and it holds on to water. How can we actually fix this? How can we actually fix, again, why the scale doesn't tell the full story? How can we fix this? We can track waist measurements. Now, we do this digitally. That's another thing I forgot to mention, that we're using actually 3D body scans. And it actually literally uses lasers to scan the entire body to where it's a perfect measurement. We can actually see, okay, here's literally a figure of where we're at right now. 1 month later, we can see exactly where we're at 1 month later, to a point where we actually use an overlay, so you can see exactly where there was fluctuations, where there was losses, and where there were gains in this particular instance. But tracking waist measurement, that's another huge one right here. You can use a simple tape measure with this. You can use actually a piece of yarn where you do the yarn around your waist, and you cut it off at that, and then say in a week, try it again and be like, oh, is there slack, or can you not touch? What's going on there? So that's one way you can fix it, is tracking waist measurements here. Also, progress photos, because photos are amazing. When you see yourself in photos, you can't deny it. If you're like, oh, I look different, all right? Also, how your clothes fit. That's another great one too. If there's a pair of jeans that fit you amazingly right now, and all of a sudden in a couple weeks they don't, you're like, oh. Or if there's a pair of jeans that fit you amazing right now, and all of a sudden in 2 weeks they're loose on you, you're like, oh. So not just the scale weight. The scale does not tell the whole picture, all right? That's a big one. And then number 5 here, and this is really considered a bonus, and I talk about this a lot because it's just been something that has completely not only changed how we're able to serve our patients, but also my own just personal growth in terms of like the aha, the light bulbs, and it's how data-driven fat loss changes everything. It changes everything. We track, we don't guess, because there's so many different principles that we think work, and yes, they do work, but not all of them work for everyone. It's like number 1 and number 4 may work for you, but number 2 and number 6 and number 8 may work for me, and number 20 and number 18 and number 14 may work for Debbie over there, But the whole idea is, if we don't track, we are guessing. So no more generic diets that don't work. That just does not work. And we wonder why we've tried so many. I'm on my 38th one here, but thinking about it now, it's like, oh my gosh. And I don't look at it as a waste of time at all. In fact, I look at it more as confirmation. It's like, oh, now I nailed it. It's like, when you're nailing it. You know when you're nailing it. And you also know when you're just like, oh my gosh, this isn't, not only is it not working for me in terms of my progress, I'm not getting the progress that I would like or the progress that I should be getting based upon the effort that I'm giving, but also I hate it. I feel like I'm suffering so bad, right? So no more generic diets. They don't work long term. And again, when you're starting a diet, and again, I really don't like that term. I don't, well, again, diets exist, right? But I don't believe in them, because they always failed me. There were components of them that worked well, and I've taken all those components and all those principles, and that has become what we call taste-centered clean eating, because it has to start with taste. It has to be very, very simple, very, very manageable, and also something that we don't feel like we're suffering through. We're actually enjoying, and I will tell you right now, I'm actually looking forward to my next meal. I'm looking forward to it. And I have really never been on a program, I will say myself personally. I've been doing this one now for about 2.5 years. And I have fluctuated from it in terms of, hey, I'm going to try this out because I just like to experiment, but as soon as I try it out, I'm like, nope, within a couple weeks I know, and I'm right back on it. And I'm like, I'm back, you know what I mean? But, back to the whole idea of data-driven fat loss has changed everything, and it does change everything. So we don't guess, we track. No more generic diets. They don't work, okay? Next is personalized fat loss based on your body. Personalized fat loss based on your body. And this is just huge, because every single person needs a different formula. Every person needs a different formula, and every woman's metabolism and hormones are different. So getting the actual feedback based upon the technology that we're using through the 3D body scans, through our scale technology, through our our smartwatch technology, through our Oura Ring technology, all this data that we actually get back allows us to actually personalize fat loss for our patients based upon their body and based upon how their body and metabolism and hormones are responding to what we're doing with them. And it really gives us the ability to maneuver very quickly without actually leaving someone in flux or leaving someone at that plateau, which is just not a great place to be. And with this technology, you have access to this. Absolutely, I recommend it. It's been phenomenal for us. So smart scales, you can go buy a smart scale, you can go buy a smartwatch. I highly recommend that. And what our system does is it actually takes all this data, it puts it into what we call our My Data system, and it literally formulates and tells us what's working for the patient and what's not, and what focus points that our patient wants to be actually working on, and only say 1 to 2 factors, and only those 1 to 2 things are going to give them, boom, a huge boost. So it's not overwhelming. It's not like, okay, you got to do these 20 things. It's like, who's going to do that? Absolutely no one. But that's what the game used to be, and that's what the game is for many weight loss organizations at this particular point. So again, that was personalized fat loss based upon every woman's body, because every woman's metabolism, every woman's hormones are different. And lastly in this, real-time tracking helps us optimize results. Just like I was talking about, when we're tracking this data, it automatically goes into our system, and now we can actually optimize all of our patients' results for them individually. If something's not working, we adjust it very quick. So there's a very, very quick feedback loop. So again, not to have any flux, not to have any plateaus, and it's just like, boom, the weight loss starts again. So how we can fix it is stop following random diets and start using real data to lose that belly fat efficiently and effectively. All right, so now that you know the truth about belly fat, what's one thing that you've tried that has not worked? I would love to hear that. And also, I'd love to hear what's one thing that you have tried that has worked. And if you could drop those in the comments, I'd love to learn your journey and hear about what's working for you and what's not working for you. And I'd also love to hear if this helped you, go ahead and save this post. Go ahead and save this post or share it with someone. And if you want me to actually break down anything more in these topics, any more detailed, please let me know, and I will absolutely cover it in another video. Again, my name is Trev Bucheri. Thank you so much for investing your time with me today, and have a great rest of your day. Take care.